Before I start this video, I just want to acknowledge that I have a merch store now. You can get them at the link in the description. I've lowered the price as much as the website allows me to, so that you guys can get the best price possible on all of the merch. It's got my Anchor logo, this design, which I thought was just really funny, and of course OC Unsolved merch. Submit your ideas for them, and I might add new designs. I've got some ideas in the works, so stay tuned for new drops. And, even better, from now until July 5th, you can get a sale on everything in the store for over 20% by using the code LAWSON, that's LAWSON, all capital. Visit the link in the description to go to the store, and I hope you like it. Sailing is fun, but the issue with it is the complexity to sail when motors exist. However, sailing ships can still go pretty fast even without motors. Thousands of years of sailing has refined the technology to be the best it can be, although motors took over eventually, with all sailing ships having them. Some kept the tradition, however, later than you think. At the turn of the century, the Coastwise Shipping Company was still trying to sail competitive against the growing steamship industry. Schooners and clippers were still sailing, and this company wanted to keep it that way. In 1901, Owen Bradley Coneshield, who was an expert at designing racing yachts, was hired to construct a monster ship. She would be the largest sailing ship in history without an engine. Sailing ships had been made larger with backup engines, but this monster would have none. Soon, construction began on a ship at the Four River Engine Company, at a cost of $250,000, or $9 million in today's money. She would be the first seven-masted sailing ship built in modern times, and one of the first sailing steel ships. She was 145 meters long and 15 meters wide, with 8.5 meters below the waterline, as well as 7 masts, each were 58 meters tall, carrying 27 sails, together containing over 4,000 meters of sails. She only required 18 crew and was meant to carry 11,000 tons of coal. Her name was also given to her as Thomas W. Lawson. However, her designers did not expect her to underperform as badly as she did. On her maiden voyage from Boston to Newport News, USA, during the voyage, it was discovered that too much of the ship was below the waterline and she did not have enough sails to reach the expected speed. Some sail experts see that she has a bit too few sails for how big of a ship she is. She could not reach the expected 20 knots and instead could go 16 knots with a reduced cargo of 7,000 tons of coal. And that was if the wind was good. She had no backup engine, and that signaled that sailing ships could never keep up with their steamships. She did have some steam engines to control winches and for the sails and electrical things, but that did not propel the ship. Marine writers criticized the ship for being sluggish and hard to maneuver in ports, as well as causing issues due to her displacement. She was intended for the Pacific routes, but ended up never making it to the Pacific, instead operating along the east coast of the US. Only a year into her service, she was laid up, and in 1906, she was converted into a sailing oil tanker. Very ironic, if you ask me. Under this new role, she saw more profit and success and was able to go a little bit faster, mostly carrying oil between Texas and the East Coast, still without an engine. Her hull at this point was also painted black. In 1907, she would finally get her chance to carry oil. Sanders Oil chartered her for their regular service across the Atlantic. She then set sail on the 19th of November from Delaware with 58,000 barrels of oil. Due to payment issues, 6 new crew members were hired in Virginia. She was then bound for London. The next day, she encountered a storm. The ship weathered through, and 20 days later, she was seen again near Europe. Most of her sails were completely gone, with only one lifeboat and a hatch also gone, causing her pumps to clog with coal from the boilers. She finally reached the Celtic Sea and the Isles of Scilly. Once she reached Scilly, she lowered her anchor to try and conduct repairs northwest of the islands. However, crews from lifeboat stations told the captain to abandon the ship due to the incoming storm, and that the ship would sink. Lifeboat crews then came to bring parts and help repair after the ship refused. Then they left to go back to Scilly. During the next night, her anchor broke, and 2 hours later, the port anchor did the same, sending her adrift. A lifeboat from the station at Scilly arrived to try to get people off. The Lawsons smashed into a rock on high seas, with all 7 masts breaking off, crashing the last remaining lifeboat as well. Some crew on the masts fell, killing them. Then, the stern of the ship broke off. By morning, the ship had turned over upside down with her keel still visible. 15 crew and 1 lifeboat captain were lost. The captain and the ship's cook jumped into the water before the ship capsized. They were the only survivors. Other seamen died in the thick layer of oil as the ship's cargo spilled out. In 1969, the wreck was partly salvaged and moved to deeper water. She is still dived on till this day. Despite wrecking in dramatic fashion, the ship was still a marvel of engineering, but has mostly been forgotten to history. Since then, of course, sailing ships technically have been built larger, but all of them have backup engines. So, was this ship a bad idea? Why was it an oil tanker? And why did they even move the ship's wreck? That's a very good question.